Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's boardzy, and this is going to be a first impressions of the Arbiter Akitsu, the first mouse from Arbiter. Also, there's some Vancer branding. Also, Finalmouse is taking some credit for it. This mouse was clearly a group effort. And yeah, these are just going to be some first impressions, not a completely full review. Just my thoughts after a day of use. The first thing, a big thing, when I didn't have this mouse, I thought it was actually a Finalmouse medium size clone, but as you can see, it's much more in line with the Finalmouse small size. One very minor difference, there aren't a ton of differences, but I do find the sides to be more flat with the Akitsu, but you can just see the profile. Like, it's definitely not a mouse made for large hands with claw grip. It's just very flat, and it is another Finalmouse shape clone, pretty much. Another thing to note is the material. It is made of a carbon fiber composite, and one of the things advertised is just incredibly, like, durable, strong sidewalls, and this is definitely the case. If I do, like, just put as much pressure as I can in this area down here with my thumb, I can get a little bit of flexing, but it's just very unrealistic, and I'm, like, pretty much printing the, like, texture from the sides on my finger, so you're just not going to be squeezing that much in game. As you can see, I did throw on some grip tape from X-Ray Pad, because I do find the mouse to have just a very, like, raw, somewhat slippery, just, like, uncoated texture feeling to it. If you do have super dry hands, you might not mind this, but they do include grip tape in the box, and you can just throw on whatever you want. For me, definitely adds to the experience. And yeah, while the shell itself of the Akitsu is obviously plenty strong, the clicks, they do let you know that this is the first batch, like their first version of this mouse. There are just a few imperfections. They don't make the clicks anywhere close to unusable. One is this, like, side-to-side wobble and grinding. I can feel some contact. Like, it's not only the mouse button that is wobbling, there is some grinding, some contact at some point. And yeah, you can see on my ULX Tarek that there is just very minimal side-to-side movement, and it's something over the course of a few batches Finalmouse had tuned up a good amount. So again, doesn't make the clicks unusable. In terms of pre and post travel, there's definitely a little bit of pre-travel on both of the clicks. Nothing that's really an issue. The post travel, there is a decent amount, and I don't really feel like it helps with the rebound of the clicks. So it's maybe something they could minimize, because the clicks, they do have a very, like, fast, snappy feeling. The clicks themselves are using a Dragon Claw custom micro switch. At first, when I was using it, I thought it could have been a Huano Blue Shell Pink Dot, but yeah, it is some type of custom mouse switch, and they do have a very, like, sharp, snappy feeling, but it's not the most aggressively tactile switch you've ever felt. They seem fairly consistent between mouse 1 and mouse 2. Okay, this is a quick sound test. Here's the grinding that I'm talking about. And yeah, the clicks definitely are not a weak point or a bad implementation, but it's just one of the only things that sticks out to me as even, like, possible to critique on this mouse. Another thing, kind of relating to the clicks, the scroll wheel. The wheel itself, it's just unobtrusive, you know, maybe a little bit heavy on, like, each of the notches, but it just feels like a standard TTC encoder. But the scroll wheel click itself, it does require a lot of force. I'm not even gonna lie, the first time I clicked it, I thought the button was, like, stuck. I thought it just wouldn't click, but then I kept applying more pressure, and then I eventually clicked it. So I'm not sure. There's one other mouse that had a really heavy scroll wheel click, and then it kind of loosened up as I pressed it more, but I did hear Finalmouse say that for the future carbon fiber mice, the scroll wheel clicks will be a little bit lighter. But yeah, going back to the clicks, these are using a new material, which is obviously much harder to dial in an implementation with. And just in general, I'm satisfied with them. They feel very low latency in game. Like, I've not had any issues. But yeah, just one thing, I'm not sure how these are going to wear in, and they do have that feeling if you click at the top where they could kind of go dull as you're spamming them, but hasn't been an issue yet. The side buttons, you can kind of just see them next to Finalmouse's side buttons. Something with the side button design and, like, these holes in the side, it just gives off, like, a very 3D printed mouse kind of vibe. But yeah, the side buttons, they are a little high up. They don't have a lot of, like, width or girth to them. I don't even know what the right word would be. They are very pointy, though. They, like, do protrude from the shell. It's kind of hard to explain until you feel it in hand, but you'll be like, damn, these are pointy, very noticeable side buttons. But yeah, I don't love the positioning, and like I mentioned before, this isn't really a claw mouse for me, so it's probably not something I'm going to be using a lot in Fortnite. Rather, it's just a top tier fingertip grip mouse, in my opinion. That does bring me to the weight, which comes in on my scale with this little bit of grip tape at 39 grams, so it's by no means a fucking brick. I don't even know why that's what I would say. It's obviously an incredibly lightweight mouse. The weight balancing is on point. It is a handful of grams heavier than the Finalmouse ULX Small, but this is really not something that's going to be a massive noticeable difference, and it just feels really good. And yeah, that pretty much rounds out my early thoughts. I don't think that this is a weak release by any means. Oh yeah, I just realized I didn't really talk about the dongle or the bottom of the mouse. As you can see, there is a dragonfly design. I don't know what the reason for that is. Maybe that's what Akitsu means. There's also a DPI and polling rate button on the mouse. And the dongle also does provide you a ton of useful info. This, in my opinion, is probably the best dongle. High polling rate tells you useful info. There are controls on the mouse. Very, very simple. I'm sure there's like a web driver, or there will be one as well. I have not had any issues with the 3395 in my brief testing. But yeah, I really have no reason to believe that the sensor would be a letdown. You can see the position. It is pretty centered. But yeah, one thing I will probably switch up are these dot skates. I believe these are an offering from some Chinese brand. I'm not a huge fan of the positioning. I'll probably throw on something like Obsidian Airs. Not that that really matters about the mouse itself. But yeah, just early thoughts, $140 for this. I don't think it's absolutely perfect, like with the coding, the side button positioning, the clicks probably aren't a 10 out of 10, but it's just still a very good, light, well-built Finalmouse small clone. So it is what it is. If you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. I will make a full review, compare it to WLMouse, Finalmouse in more detail in a few weeks. But yeah, that's going to be about all for this first impressions of the Arbiter Akitsu. Like and sub if you enjoyed, and peace out. Which mouse do I have plugged in? This one.